inside town. There's a few around town. It's called the CONAD. I think that's how you say it. CONAD grocery store. So I'm gonna go get some essentials there and check it out. So this bar al Arco place, like, not gonna lie, not every meal in Italy impressed us, but the food here was amazing. It's like a little cafe, super tight inside, hole in the wall, shoulder to shoulder, appear to be just full of locals, like a lot of older men who are just getting their morning grub, maybe a coffee or something, chatting. And the food you get here is called cicchetti, which I think translates to like side dishes or bar snacks or something like that in the Venetian language. Not Italian, but Venetian. And the cicchetti here that we got is tiny sandwiches, or more like pieces of bread topped with like shrimp or other seafood or prosciutto. And they were so delicious. Unfortunately, Caroline, because she was pregnant, couldn't enjoy all of them. But the one she could have, she agreed. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Okay, and then after we wrapped up here, ate this delicious, delicious cicchetti, we walked over to St. Mark's Square to take a tour of Doge's palace. About to go into the Doge's palace. The Doge, spelled D-O-G-E, kind of like Doge. The Doge was an elected official in Venice. He wasn't so much the Duke or the King of Venice or anything like that. He was more of the one who would represent Venice to the rest of Europe. And this is his palace. You shouldn't think of it as though, the Doge, had all these rooms for all his servants and his family and whatnot. The Doge did have a small apartment in the palace, but most of the rooms were actually used for administrative and political purposes for the Republic of Venice. The Doge was also typically an older man, typically older than 80 years old. The idea being that, well, if you elected somebody so old, he would die before he had the time to consolidate power and, within himself and potentially become corrupt. There's also some amazing art here, especially by the artist Tintoretto. Religious scenes mostly. There's a huge painting called Paradiso that shows the artist's representation of heaven. Many rooms and several stories, especially on this side of the building. You can't really tell from the outside, but they were used as a prison for political prisoners in the Republic of Venice. The famous ladies' man, Giacomo Casanova, was actually imprisoned here and is said to have escaped with the help of a priest. So I'm gonna head in now to the Doge's Palace, and I'll see you inside. Bye-bye. We took the secret itineraries tour of the Doge's Palace. A lot of the rooms at the beginning of the tour were offices, basically, of various Venetian officials and administrators. These rooms were fairly dark, and the footage I was able to take wasn't the best. But there was one room that was pretty interesting, even though it was dark. That is the torture chamber. In this torture chamber, the tour guide was describing how prisoners would be interrogated by having their hands tied behind their back, and then they would be suspended in midair with this giant rope. So obviously they experienced a discomfort in their shoulders of their hands being tied behind their back, the anxiety of being hoisted up into the air. Obviously, the interrogators were trying to get a confession out of them, but obviously I think compared to other, say, late Middle Ages / Renaissance torture devices, this is probably somewhat tame comparably. And then we saw Casanova's prison cell where he stayed. I believe that this cell of Casanova is reconstructed. And then there was this upper level that had a lot of weaponry and armor from the period in it. There's some stories about that room as well, the tour guide told us. And there's the various chambers that have all the art in them, including Tintoretto's Paradiso. So all in all, the secret itineraries tour of Doge's Palace, because I'm really into history, I enjoyed it, right? I enjoyed the little details, learning about Casanova and all that stuff. Caroline may not have rated it as highly as I did. And I'm not going to lie, other than the artwork, it's not the most scenic place in sight. So if you're not super into history and you don't have a lot of time in Venice and you're more just into seeing pretty things, I would say maybe rather than hitting up Doge's Palace, just take the hour and a half and walk around Venice, right? And pardon the cliche, but get lost in Venice. Or just don't do the full secret itineraries tour. Just, walk around Doge's Palace. Don't have to see all the hidden rooms and all that stuff. So that's my 2 cents on Doge's Palace. Next stop, lunch at Del Moro's, fresh pasta to go.
So it'll be 14.
What did you get, babe?
I got a carbonara and then a lunch.
All right.
Sorry, guys.
All right, so the pasta here, I liked it. Caroline liked it as well. Just warning though, it is very rich, like super rich. At least the 2 kinds of pasta we got, carbonara and amatriciana, probably butchering that pronunciation. Super rich. If you're not into super rich foods, super rich, obviously super carby, maybe you're looking for something a little bit more traditional, maybe skip Del Moro's, right? Despite its crazy reputation. But if you're looking for something super rich and flavorful, hot pasta, check it out. Sure. I will say this though, we did have better carbonara later on our trip at a restaurant in Rome. Of course, you're gonna have to wait for that vlog to come out. After Del Moro's, we basically just walked around Venice for a bit, stood on some bridges, watched some gondolas, asked strangers to take a picture or two of Caroline and me. Caroline took some silly pictures of me on top of the marble lion next to St. Mark's Basilica. The lion is, of course, a symbol of St. Mark, who wrote the Gospel of Mark in the Bible. The lion is a symbol of Venice because St. Mark is the patron saint of Venice. There's a story of how in the 9th century, Venetian merchants stole the body of St. Mark from Alexandria, took it to Venice, all these traditional legends, right? So this is why in Venice there's St. Mark's Square, there's St. Mark's Basilica, all these lions around. Then we went to the top of St. Mark's Campanile, or Bell Tower. This is the bell tower directly across from St. Mark's Basilica and St. Mark's Square. You can take an elevator up. It's not cheap. I think it was like €12 per person, if I'm not mistaken, but it is the best bird's eye view of Venice, hands down. It was overcast this day, so perhaps not the best visibility, but still breathtaking views nevertheless, and still very, very beautiful. After we took in the view at St. Mark's Bell Tower, I had to use the restroom. The restroom closest to St. Mark's Square is a public restroom right behind the square. It does cost money. I think it was like 1.5 euro. You have to enter a building and go up some flights of stairs. The stall was clean and private though, in my experience, but just be aware if you're in St. Mark's Square and you need to use a public restroom, this is your closest option. Obviously, if you're in a hotel near St. Mark's Square, you could just hop back to your hotel. But our hotel was actually closer to the Venice train station, about a half hour's walk from St. Mark's Square, so that wasn't really an option. So after I used the restroom, we decided to venture off to another district of Venice called Dorsoduro. I'm probably butchering that pronunciation. We spent most of our time so far in the San Marco or St. Mark district. That's obviously the heart of all the main touristy stuff in Venice, but there are actually 6 districts in Venice. There's San Marco, there's Santa Croce, where our hotel was, there's Dorsoduro, where we went next. There's a few others as well that we didn't have a chance to spend time in. But the thing I wanted to see in Dorsoduro is a building that is used in one of my favorite movies. So I want to know, do you recognize what movie this building is from? Do you recognize it? Here's a picture of me in front of it. Let me know in the comments below if you recognize this building from a popular movie. Then we walked around kind of aimlessly for another little bit. We took some pictures. I think we stopped in for some coffee somewhere, but we just had a great time walking. Like, you hear it all the time from anybody who's been to Venice, but it's true. Venice really is just a great place to walk around with no particular destination in mind. But eventually we did get dinner. We headed back to our hotel, got dinner at a restaurant in Santa Croce called Trefanti. The food here was all right, like it was a decent meal. Definitely didn't knock our socks off. We definitely had some better food elsewhere on our trip in Italy, but you know what? The meal was satisfactory. Then after dinner, we headed over to this gelato place called GROM in the Venice train station, and it was pretty good gelato, actually. By that time, it was around 9 p.m. We were tired. We had done a little walking. We went back to the hotel and called it a night. So we'll see you tomorrow right here on the vlog. You'll be joining us in Florence, where we saw Michelangelo's famed David sculpture.
Gotta find out what that thing is.
Ti ho detto, se firma anche se le dicono, firmi che inizia a lavorare da oggi.
Looks like a shrine to Mary or something. Yeah, all these locks, huh? I wonder what the locks represent.
No, just come meet us at Rialto.